Morning, what up, Dan and Amy? And boy, I tell you what, Trump is talking about draining the swamp by instituting term limits. I like this better. Drain the swamp of Mr. and Mrs. Carlos Danger. Drain the swamp of Mr. and Mrs. Bob Creamer by sending them the way of Mr. and Mrs. Jesse Jackson Jr. in Illinois. Wouldn't that be nice if that's how this all turns out?
To serve consecutive sentences.
That's exactly right.
For the sake of the child, that poor kid.
So this was fascinating. The response to Friday's sonic boom from the FBI from Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid was to issue a threatening letter to Jim Comey suggesting that he may be in violation of the Hatch Act and subject to federal prosecution himself. That's implied by suggesting he's violating the Hatch Act. His decision to reopen the investigation is the equivalent of campaigning, electioneering, using federal resources in furtherance of Donald Trump's campaign. That's what Harry Reid suggested. And here's what our friend Trey Gowdy, Republican congressman from South Carolina, had to say about that letter. Gowdy, a former prosecutor, Gowdy on with our other friend, Bret Baier, special report on Friday. Trey Gowdy's priceless reaction.
To Jim Comey, your actions in recent months have demonstrated a disturbing double standard for the treatment of sensitive information and what appears to be a clear intent to aid one political party over the other. I'm writing to inform you that my office has determined that these actions may violate the Hatch Act, which bars FBI officials from using their official authority to influence an election. Through your partisan actions, this is Harry Reid, you may have broken the law. The double standard established by your actions is clear. Your reaction, Congressman?
Thank God he's leaving is my initial reaction. My second reaction is I did not know Mormons use drugs, and anyone who is capable of sending out that press release has to be under the influence of something. The person responsible for this fact pattern is Secretary Clinton. Jim Comey did not tell her to use a private server.
By the way, Mike Scott, our newsman, has pointed this out. This continues to be misreported by the D.C. Press Corps about the Hatch Act that's referenced here, as if it only applies to FBI employees. It applies to the entire federal government. So, Senator Reid, would you say that the IRS and illegally targeting people based on their political beliefs and religious beliefs under IRS Commissioner Koskinen and Lois Lerner, would you say they're using their federal positions to influence elections on behalf of one political party? I mean, it's just priceless that Harry Reid would send such a letter, and it speaks to, I think, how damaging what Jim Comey did on Friday is to the Clinton campaign and the Clinton narrative in the closing days.
He and other top Democratic senators, they're drawing the line. They want information, the focus released today. I mean, they wrote in that letter, too, that there's a deadline of October 31st.
Yeah,
well, that's
October
today,
31st,
and I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, let's talk to a leading Republican United States senator. He is our friend from the North. He is U.S. Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Senator Johnson, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing? I'm running against Senator Feingold, who has his own email scandal. We certainly, there have been some people wondering whether he violated the Hatch Act when he was a special envoy in the State Department, still talking to John Tester at the DSCC about running for this Senate seat. So we're there's been 2 years outstanding when the FOIA requests of his emails have not been honored. Apparently, they may be giving us some access before the election, but otherwise they're going to dump them in December. So now there's corruption throughout the highest levels of government. And let me tell you what drives me nuts about this whole email scandal. To me, I'm not a lawyer. This is pretty clear cut. You look at the two statutes that I believe that Secretary Clinton violated, and I'm really asking your listeners to read these things. 18 U.S. Code 2071. Sections A and B, and 18 U.S. Code 793, subsection F. I'm going to leave some of the words out because it's a lot of gobbledygook, but it's pretty simple.
Okay.
2071 says, whoever willfully conceals, destroys any record of the United States shall be fined or imprisoned not more than 3 years and be disqualified from holding any office of the United States. 793 is talking about the unlawful possession and basically mishandling of information dealing with the national defense through gross negligence shall be fined or imprisoned for not more than 10 years. These are serious offenses. I think it's just obvious this is exactly what Secretary Clinton did, what her aides did. And the fact of the matter is, we all know when we're sending an email, whether it's a Gmail account, whether it's a state.gov classified account, President Obama was emailing Secretary Clinton to her ClintonEmail.com account, and yet denied that he knew anything about it. Listen, I think everybody in government who communicated with Secretary Clinton had to know that she was using an email system outside the State Department classified system. To me, they're all called both. And Director Comey's investigation, I think, has been public from the start. I think it's designed more not to uncover the truth and prosecute, but to cover up the truth and exonerate. And I think that's what we're seeing and why he's in such hot water today.
Do you think, considering what happened in this latest investigation, that she should have her security clearance revoked or yanked, she along with her inner circle?
Well, yes. I mean, let's face it. If her name wasn't Hillary Clinton, if she was just applying for a low-level position, the State Department asked for a low-level security clearance, she couldn't get it. I don't think, based on the fact pattern, she could be confirmed for any position by the United States Senate. And yet, because I don't believe this has been properly reported, it's been obfuscated. We end up, going to all this complexity. It's not complex. It's very simple. You can't conceal or destroy federal records. All of her emails were federal records. The ones weren't personal. And, of course, we know she had classified material. We know she supposedly destroyed, she tried to destroy federal records. And you cannot mishandle records related to national defense. She exposed those to her enemies. She exposed them to Anthony Weiner. Okay, so if those things are on Anthony Weiner's device, I bet you Russians, Chinese, the Iranians probably have those things too. And how could their actions been modified or affected by what they found out reading Secretary Clinton's emails? I mean, this is such dangerously reckless behavior, grossly negligent. She violated these laws. I think it's crystal clear. I can't believe Director Comey didn't recommend indictment. The Department of Justice. Well, I can't believe it because it's a corrupt organization.
A local columnist here in Chicago, John Cass, Chicago Tribune, I'm sure you're familiar with him, he suggested that if the Democrats want to abide the standards they suggest they have for themselves, then they should call on Hillary Clinton to step aside.
They should. Again, if you just read the law, she should be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. If you take a look at the immunity agreements granted to Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson, that's what points to a corrupt investigation. Saying that you would only allow the review over a certain time period of information on their laptops, and then supposedly they're going to agree to destroy those laptops so it couldn't be used in any further investigation. I mean, again, this was willful ignorance on the part of the investigation, or the part of the investigators, as far as I'm concerned. It's been a corrupt process from the beginning, and we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. But it does point to corruption at the highest levels of government, in the White House, in the Department of Justice, FBI, and the State Department. And it is a swamp that needs to be drained.
And he is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. He's running against Russ Feingold, who's a Hillary Clinton surrogate up in Wisconsin, and our friends north of the Cheese Curtain. This is the critical race for the United States Senate. Ron Johnson, reelecting Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great day. And just remember, Feingold actually thinks Secretary Clinton's trustworthy. Think about that for a minute.
We'll ponder that.
That says
Thank
it
you.
all. Thanks, Senator Johnson. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.